Hello? Bueno. Can everyone hear me out there? Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, thank you. Again, welcome to the city of Madeira Beach. I'm Robin Gomez, the city manager, and see behind me city staff that will introduce as we go forward. Behind me to my right and to my left, we actually have our Mayor Anne Marie Brooks and City Vice Mayor, excuse me, David Tagliarini. But again, we have 2 hours allotted for this. The purpose is to provide as much information to all of you to try to better understand, navigate through what we are all dealing with. And that is the reality of the destruction of brought about 90% of all structures here, pretty much along the barrier islands, and particularly single-story homes that have been decimated mostly by water. As I stated earlier, where I live is uninhabitable. My family and I are homeless at the time. I've actually been living here at City Hall, so I'm not homeless. It is comfy, it's quiet, but then employees show up around 7 a.m. and you got to get up out of the air mattress to get to work. But I'm very thankful, very happy that I do have a job. And our job is to provide as much information, continue to provide the municipal services that we have been providing. This is unprecedented. This has not happened before. Has anybody experienced this before? I was at Hurricane Andrew 32 years ago. However, I was a student. I was in college. But we were displaced for 2.5 weeks. The University of Miami was far north of Homestead, Florida. Homestead, Florida, for a couple of years, essentially ceased to exist. The entire city was destroyed. You went down and all you saw were piles of debris. Totally the opposite, totally different than here. Water is a totally different phenomena. Each hurricane, each storm is unique. None of them are the same. How cities, how communities, how your governments, local, city, county, state, and the federal react has also been slightly different. However, what you are going to hear today, yes, it is in the city's building code. And for those that are familiar with the building code, it guides what you can build, how, some of the specifics. Because we're on a barrier island, we are also bound by zoning and by floodplain. Because we're in a flood zone, being on a barrier island, we are also bound by those regulations that are not just in the Florida building code that we have adopted or the international building code that we have also adopted, but also the county, the state, and the federal government. So we have to comply with quite a bit of those rules. You will likely hear what happens if we don't comply, because that happened 2 years ago for a couple of communities to our south. So there is a possibility that we, the city of Madeira Beach, and along with other cities out here, how many cities in Pinellas County? 24. So that was your first trivia of the night. We all have to follow the rules. What happens if we do not? You will hear as to what that happens if we do not. We do have a choice. And what I've already read from some of your comments and questions, why not let all of you decide how we proceed? Do we follow FEMA rules or do we not follow FEMA rules? Do we have an option to do that? I've been in local government for 30 years. So we have a choice to make whether we do follow the rules or we don't. We do have a choice. Do we want to do that? I don't know. I don't get to make that decision. We're here to provide you all that information, answer as many of your questions that we have. So please sit tight. We're going to begin with some presentations. We're going through all of your questions and all of your comments, and we'll give you all that information. So I'm going to turn it over to Marcy Forbes, our Community Development Engineer.
Good evening, everybody. We'll go ahead and start with introductions real quick. That way you know who all's up on the dais, and we'll start with Frank down at the end.
Hello, everybody. I'm Frank DeSantis. I'm the building official for the city.
Hi, I'm Barbara Scott. I'm the Building Department Permit Technician.
Jay Stearman, Planner 2.
Joseph Petraglia, Planner 1.
Hi, my name is Andrew Morris, and I'm the long-range planner in the Community Development Department.
And as Robin stated, my name is Marcy Forbes. I'm the Community Development Engineer. I'm a licensed engineer in the state of Florida, and I'm also a certified floodplain manager. I've put together a few slides, but I didn't want to inundate people with slides. I feel like this is one of those things where there's going to be so many questions that will answer everything. So I'll be brief with the slides, and we'll move on to the questions that we've received. So first, we have the FEMA 50% rule, which I know everybody's been talking about. And what that means is if you're in a special flood hazard area and your property is damaged substantially, that means it is damaged beyond 50% the value of the structure. And that's of the structure alone. It doesn't include your land or your, adjacent garage or anything like that. It's the footprint of your home. So if you have a attached garage, it does include that, but a detached garage not. So they try to limit that because they want to encourage people to get out of the floodplain. So once you begin to elevate and you can't remodel and do things like that, then you have to elevate and become floodplain compliant. To be clear, that is also a Florida Building Code requirement. It is in the existing Florida Building Code. They describe substantial damage. So it is also in the Florida Building Code. So even if we were to make some decisions around our participation as an NFIP community, we would not be able to negate the FEMA 50% rule. A little louder. Okay, so, much better? Okay, so again, the FEMA 50% rule is part of the existing building code, so it is a Florida Building Code requirement. Like I said, even if we decided not to participate in some capacity as an NFIP community, which we'll discuss, it would not remove that requirement and responsibility. So the first thing is I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about substantial damage. I just took a pre-made slide by FDEM.
FDEM is the Florida Division of Emergency Management. So all of you are aware, programs that FEMA, sorry, I'm going to interrupt Marcy a few
You're
times.
fine.
Programs that FEMA offers, for example, to elevate your home called hazard mitigation. And hazard mitigation has multiple different programs or grants that are available to help people to fortify or strengthen your home. One is to elevate your home. FEMA pushes those grants through the Florida Division of Emergency Management, or FDEM. So you will hear, because essentially FDEM is the, how would we best explain it? They enforce and carry out what FEMA provides here in the state of Florida.
Correct. They're basically the state arm of FEMA, so the Florida Department of Emergency Management, and they handle a lot of stuff, so they're basically the state arm of FEMA. So up here is just the slide that I basically talked to you guys about, the definition of substantial damage. It's where the structure is damaged over 50% the value of the structure, such that to return it to its pre-storm condition would cost you more than half the value of the structure. Adhering to this helps with our NFIP community participation. So as part of that, if you don't maintain compliance, you risk probation and suspension from NFIP. Non-participating communities are not eligible for projects located within the floodplain under FEMA. And if in suspension, residents can no longer purchase NFIP flood insurance. So like Robin mentioned, if we were to say that we no longer wanted to be a participating NFIP community, what would happen is the following year, if we get dropped and we remove ourselves, anybody who has a mortgage that carries flood insurance that's backed through NFIP would lose that flood insurance. And it would be difficult, if not impossible, then to continue with your mortgage because you would not be able to get flood insurance. We would also not get any FEMA assistance. And so right now, the debris that is being picked up throughout our community will be reimbursed by FEMA. The policies that are being paid out, the flood insurance policies that are being paid out through FEMA. The NFIP policies are federally backed from FEMA through the Department of Homeland Security. So if we don't participate, those items become unavailable to us. And furthermore, if we do not do this correctly and follow the rules, we risk not being reimbursed for all we're doing now, for all the debris pickup, all the sand cleaning, everything that qualifies for the city to get reimbursed by will be out millions. We had a lessons learned meeting with Cape Coral, who went through this with Ian, and they were very clear about the lessons learned. There was several community officials on that meeting, and I would have to say I'm sure all of them hung up with eyes wide open and a much better understanding of what's at risk here. So
if we don't follow the rules, again, we lose the ability, all of our properties lose the ability to participate in the National Flood Insurance Program, we would essentially be on our own. FEMA would not be here. You wouldn't have, how many of you have spoken with FEMA representatives here in the last week? That wouldn't exist in the future. That would go away. We would be on our own. So any subsequent, well, if we choose to do that now, or again, not my decision, but if that's a decision made, we would likely not be reimbursed several $1,000,000 for the debris removal and everything else that has been spent since the first storm hit. So it would essentially come out of the city's budget, out of our reserves, which I've had many people tell me, well, isn't that okay? Yeah, I mean, it's an emergency. It's a rainy day. That's why you have reserves. Has it been raining? Yeah, it's been raining. Our city is destroyed. So could we do that? Yes. What happens if this happens again in 2 years from now, 3 years from now? FEMA will not come and help out. Those are the current rules, so all of you are aware. So it's a huge, huge risk.
And involved with that, I know a lot of you guys hear about the CRS program. The CRS program is a community's opportunity to go above and beyond the bare minimum requirements. And we do participate in the CRS. We are actively a 7, but we just got our report back and we've been upgraded to a 6, which means starting next year, you'll get a 20% discount on your flood insurance. Right now, you're getting 15. So as a community, we've been very good about trying to maintain everything that we can do in support of this initiative to help make sure that you guys get the best available discount possible. As a barrier island, we are limited to the various types of activities and infrastructure, things that we can do to help get more points, but where we get them, we're optimizing every single one we can get. Currently, the city of Madera Beach has a 1-year look back, which means if you've invested in your property with any upgrades over the last year, everything is cumulative for improvements and damages. But right now, we are not worried about homeowners and the previous improvements. We're strictly focusing on the damages related to the 2 events that we've had and trying to figure out how we can best educate people, give them guidance on what they'll be able to do with their structure under these guidelines. Team, is there anything you guys want to add relative to that?
Yeah, I've received a couple of questions just going through a big stack here. A couple of you asked, can the 50% rule be revised? Now, that's a bit of a tricky question because the 50% rule is still a 50% rule. That's not going to go anywhere. But if you're asking about the look back, that can be revised. We've seen other communities do it. That comes at a risk of CRS points, so we have to kind of weigh the benefits versus the costs of what that would do. We're thinking about the people who have invested in their homes, whether to make it more flood resilient or for whatever reason. We don't want that to become sort of a penalty, but at the end of the day, that's not going to be a decision that the staff is going to end up making. But that certainly is an option that can be done. There's anything from a 5-year and longer look back, which is more stringent, to a 0 look back, where you can put a permit in today to spend 49% of the value of your home, and then you can come back tomorrow with another permit that's also 49% of the value of your home, and we would accept both. And that, of course, would be the most lenient. So there is some discretion there now, but as Marcy said, we still have the 1-year look back, but that is an option.
So if you guys don't have anything specific, I know you guys have the questions in, we could go ahead and move to questions, or is there another topic you guys would like me to touch on before we go into questions? I know we've been talking about this a lot, so I could have very well missed something critical. Sounds good, so we're going to answer the questions.
So here's some kind of bigger picture. Has anyone looked into how Marco Island has fared since they withdrew from FEMA? We should take a citywide vote on leaving. Put insurance is expensive, but better than losing your home. I agree. I think it is better than losing your home. I'm 100% supportive of that. Again, I've stated what the risks are if we do go on our own. Again, not my decision, but certainly I think a lot of you feel that way. Why do I have flood insurance? Well, I guess most of you have. Some of you do not have flood insurance. going to infer most of you do. But either way, I believe Marco Island is self-insured. I'm guessing whoever has flood insurance pays quite a bit to have it if they have it. But we, as Marcy stated, we listened to the city of Cape Coral, and they're pretty much out millions and millions of dollars that they just have to take out of their reserves, which again is something that cities, we have the option to do that as well. I'm not advocating that we do that one way or another, but that is a possibility that could happen. Related to that, is anyone enlisting our essentially government officials, senators, representatives, governor, presidential candidates, et cetera, to help the barrier islands not be depopulated by FEMA, so only the very rich can live here? And so I know our mayor and I have been to multiple meetings among our state representatives. We were at a meeting with the Florida Division of Emergency Management Director, Mr. Guthrie, and we discussed a lot of what you've heard today, and every city's in the same scenario. Fortunately, we fared better than other cities, particularly, for example, our neighbors. They don't have a police or a fire station. They are Treasure Island I'm alluding to, they are very lucky they moved their government into the building that they're in now. Otherwise, they would not have a working government. But yes, we've spoken with them. And again, we will have some very difficult decisions to make as to whether we continue how we are or we don't. That's what we have to do. And then there was just to go quickly off topic about debris removal. We've spoken with our contractor. They are removing debris. They go through it. They have to follow a process, again, that FEMA requires in order for the city, and again, every city, to be reimbursed by FEMA. We can say, no, FEMA, take a hike, then we'd have to pay the bill, and again, that would come out of the city's budget, out of our reserves. Go ahead. Get closer to me.
Can everyone hear me? One question is, will FEMA or a city official be inspecting our homes? What is the anticipated response time? For everyone who's turned in a demo application, that's what we're asking for everyone to, even if the demo's been done, submit. You can either come here on Monday through Friday, 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., and city staff can help assist you with that permitting process. Or a lot of you are familiar with our online portal, MGO, and you can submit that information yourself, even if the demo's been done. Once that's been accepted, we will put you on the list to have the building official and a representative from the planning department will physically come to your home, inspect the demolition, the damage that's been done, and planning needs to do their evaluation for substantial improvement, and then
Damage.
they'll talk with you about what the next steps are for repair and everything like that. Currently, we are waiving permitting fees for demolition only. Okay, so, and that'll be until November 14th. I imagine that is
to the 28th. We extended it to the 28th. I'm sorry. I mean,
Yeah.
November
This
the
is-
28th.
Yeah, and that's, again, not carved in stone. We know a lot of people are homeowners that live out of the state and everything like that, and we want to be as accommodating as possible. If you have any questions about permitting or anything like that, the best way to reach us, if you can't come here physically from 11 to 4, is 11,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
wanted to overwrite the open permitting hours are 11 to 3:30.
My mistake, sorry. But you can email building department is abbreviated DEPT, at madeirabeachfl.gov. I, trust me, am at the computer, and you will get a response from me within the half an hour to point you in any direction that I possibly can. If you need to access the online portal to fill out a permit application, that's available on our website, madeirabeachfl.gov. If you go to the building department and under helpful resources, you'll see a little button that says apply for a permit online. That will take you to the MGO portal. If you don't already have an account set up, Just the first time, you'll have to set up an account with them. It's really super easy. Then you'll see all the permit templates. You'll select the demo permit template and just follow the directions. A couple of these are templates, so a lot of times they're asking for information that may not pertain to your scope of work. Anything with a red asterisk, the system needs something uploaded into it. If it doesn't pertain to you, just upload a blank document, and then you can move on. For demo permits, what we really need is just a floor plan. It can be hand-drawn. It can also is available on the property appraiser's website. If you look up your permit, you'll see on the bottom a floor plan, and it notes, square footage and everything like that. Just upload that. That's all we need for now. And then we can get your inspection scheduled. We are about, because these take time, and we're trying to, I've been pushing Frank and probably to the brink, trying to do anywhere about 20 to 30 inspections a day. But as you can see now, about 95% of the homes in Madeira Beach need to be inspected. We've done a big chunk of them so far. So even though you might have your demo permit in, it might take a week before we can get you out inspected, but we haven't forgotten about you. When your inspection is scheduled, you're going to be notified a total of 3 times via email. It'll be the email address that you have put in that permit application. And you'll be notified the day before. So the system will notify you that, hey, your inspection's scheduled, and then I'm, again, emailing all of the email addresses that are contacts that we have that, hey, your inspection is scheduled for tomorrow. You do not need to be at your property for it to be inspected. So I know all of us are working and, trying, may not even be living at the house or whatever. If you put in the notes, email back that, hey, there's a key on the side, or the back door's open, or, go knock on my neighbor's door and someone will let you in. So you don't need to be there for it to be inspected, just the inspectors need access to it, so.
And as related to inspections too, we are working with the county. So everything we're doing, we've been in constant communication with the county and other municipalities. So we're not standing out on any of our decisions and anything like that. But we are working with the county to get extra help. So they've trained up a whole bunch of substantial damage estimators, and we will be getting teams of people out here that will help expedite the substantial damage inspection part of this process. So we were very proactive early on in requesting that, and so we should hope to be getting those very soon.
Yep, that was another comment, more help coming. Well, more help's
it's
on the
on its
way.
way.
It's on its way.
I just want to say too, as I had a question, when does substantial damage, the word they used was investigations. When do they start? They've already started. We started last week, and Frank and I went out today. We were able to knock out 18 today and 18 yesterday, which might not seem like a lot, but I just wanted to take a brief moment and just say thank you, because just about every single person that we've met with and went to their house was nice to us, right? Mm-hmm. I'll tell you what, people always ask us,
We
when
appreciate
I
that.
come back, they say, how'd it go? How'd it go? And we're like, it went fine. I mean, we're all at a loss. We're all are going through this, trying to figure things out. We've got a million questions. We've been answering the same questions. We're trying to help you out as much as we can. So I just want to say thank you to so many of you that have just been nice. I know the last thing you want to do is have some city officials walking in, asking questions about your floors and your electric panel and your roof and all that. You've already talked to insurance people and FEMA and whoever else, but we really appreciate your patience. We know it's not easy, so thanks.
Yeah, answer.
I have a 2-part question here. The first part says, why is Hillsborough County able to offer expedited permitting for residents, but Madeira cannot? The reason I can't speak for Hillsborough County as far as expediting their permits, we're going as fast as we can as far as intake. The important thing is for you to apply for a demo permit, hurricane-related demo permit. That starts the process, okay? The second part of the question is, if they do not require, okay, I'm sorry. Is there a way to hire more inspectors to expedite the permit process? As Marcy spoke earlier, we are working on that.
And not just the county, we also made a request to the state for the same, so has every other city along the barrier islands. I will say, I've been here 34 months as the city manager, and fortunately, about 16 months ago, we were fully staffed. And so if this had happened 2 years ago, it would be a lot worse. But thankfully, we did it fully staffed.
And due to the fact that the entire island was flooded, every single structure has got to be inspected, so that takes quite some time.
Okay, I got another question here. It says, if we know our damages are more than 50%, will building permits be available as soon as possible? I got to throw that over to you.
So is the question, you know your damages are more than 50%? And so the way the question's worded, that's what they're asking, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're more than 50%. So if your damages are more than 50% the value of your structure, you have to become floodplain compliant, which means you must either elevate the existing structure so that the living floor is above our design flood elevation. You can gut the floor, you can build on top such that your first living level is above the design flood elevation, or you can tear down the home entirely and rebuild. Just so you guys know, we measure height of the building from design flood elevation. So just because you have to be higher, you're not going to lose the quality of the home that you can build back. I know some people are wondering about the height for R1, R2. We're right around 30. Our code is worded a little.
Generally speaking, our height, I think as a planner, I think is very permissive. If you are thinking about elevating your house or your duplex or your triplex or whatever you have, I really don't anticipate that the height is going to be a concern.
But what is the height? And the height varies by where you are located in the city. And that's why I think Marcy mentioned the R1 or R2 for the zoning. It depends where you are, and it could vary from structure to structure, I believe.
So
It's what you're
it's-
above sea
yeah.
level.
So hold on a second. So it's measured from the elevation. So your design flood elevation, if you're in AE 10, your first living floor will have to be at 14, elevation 14, which in most cases around the city would be 10 feet above the ground you're looking at. Then above that, you can go to, for instance, in R1, which is like, Bay Point, Crystal, Normandy. The way it's worded is, no structure shall exceed 30 feet in height as measured from the designated base flood elevation on the flood map or to the eave line of the building unless otherwise designated. So basically it's 30 feet to the eave line or 40 feet to the maximum roof pitch height. So it's 30 feet to eave line or 40 feet to maximum pitch line.
But I think the question is so the ground throughout our city varies above sea level. It varies from a low of 2 feet.
Yeah, 2 to 4.5.
Right. So you could be 2 feet above sea level. So you're at 2. Now your living, if you're going to elevate, must be what? If you're at 2 feet above sea level.
So if your at grade is 2 feet and you have to be at 14 feet, then you're going to be 12 feet high at your first living level.
So you must be 12 feet above the ground
So yeah, average.
for you to be able to live there. Well, again, it depends where your ground, your dirt. 14 feet if you're 2 feet above sea level. If you're 3 feet above sea level, then it becomes
So
17
we have multiple base flood elevations in the city. Some of you are in 10, some of you are in 11, some of you are in 12, some of you are in coastal A, some of you are in V zones, and we have a 4-foot freeboard. So whatever your base flood elevation is, add 4 feet to that and assume that is where the elevation that your first living floor can start. So if you're currently on your property and your elevation is 2 and your first living floor must be at 14, then it's 12 feet above where you're standing that your first living floor can start. Does that make sense?
So it's likely for most properties anywhere from 13, 14, 15 feet from your ground.
Correct. And we allow for 2 feet of fill. We don't allow for structural fill because we require deep foundations throughout the city. So all homes are built on deep foundations, but you are allowed to raise your grade 2 feet above the center line of road. What we try to do is, the reason is the center line of the road and your seawall, your controlling factors. You want the water to drain like that. So that's why you want to judge your seawall height as well as your house from the center line of the road. That way we keep a balance with the water.
And why would we not allow more than 2 feet of fill? Again, sorry.
So the main reason for the 2 feet of fill is with FEMA, they require, if you end up in a coastal area V zone, it's based on a wave run-up analysis and the damage they anticipate that will occur due to the wave rush of water. So anything more than 2 feet in coastal A and V zones requires a wave run-up analysis, which is a very expensive analysis. They want to limit fill because they want to limit deflection. That's why people have to also have, in certain areas, breakaway walls. Ideally, they want the water to come in and go out freely with as minimal obstructions, and that way there's less damage, less debris, and that's the goal with that. So that's the reasoning behind the no fill, is deflection. That way you're not rushing water onto your neighbors' properties and things like that. So that's the theory.
So, and then another question that came up is, so, okay, I want to elevate my house. What programs does FEMA have to help me defer the cost? And FEMA has a couple of programs. The main one, which I think allows a grant of up to $250,000 or $275,000. The city of Madeira Beach participated in that over a decade ago. There were a lot of problems over the years, and we were just about to get all of that cleared up. FEMA, through FDEM, you got to know your initials, wanted us to reimburse that we had violated those agreements for those grants from a decade ago. They were asking for us to return $860-some thousand because when they built up, they built too much. They exceeded the allowable square footage. You're allowed, if you participate in those grants, very, very extensive, very, very complicated. You have to follow the rules. If you don't, you run into the problems that we ran into. However, we thought everything had been cleared up a couple of years ago, and then FEMA through FDEM said, no, this is what the rule is now. And that's been part of the issue with FEMA, is how the rules have been applied over the years. But we are looking to go back and to participate in that program. However, that likely would not happen until we have the issue remaining to be cleared up. If we had to repay anything, we may be down to about $80,000, which is significantly less than $800,000. These properties that receive those grants, a lot of them have already been sold a couple of times. So there's programs out there. They do require a lot on the part of the homeowner. We would have to employ somebody full-time, which isn't an issue, but to just oversee if we went back and issued those grants, which there has been support by the commission to go back to that once we clear up these issues that started, well, realistically about 6 to 7 years ago, but from the grants that were issued in 2013 and 2014. If you cannot get grant to elevate your home, right. Well, but again, even if we decide to, remember, we could pull out from FEMA altogether, then we're not eligible for it. But if we stay with FEMA, the 50% rule applies, and the substantial damage, we wouldn't be able to get to this grant likely until sometime in 2025, but it does take time to apply, and for individual property owners to apply, to be approved and go through that entire process is at least, Marcy, you were a 6 to 9 month process?
Yeah, it was a very long process, and there's no guarantee you get approved.
Right.
So they run benefit cost analysis on each structure, and based on the benefit cost analysis, they decide if they'll give you the grant. And the problem is there's a limit to that. So their benefit cost analysis could render a number and says, okay, it's worth it to give us a grant if you can spend 400 grand, we're going to give you 225. You can spend the other, but not a dime more. Even if it's your money that you want to invest in that property, their benefit cost analysis says the sweet spot is 400 and that's all you get. Now, I'm using those as round numbers, but that becomes one of the issues with it. And also the property has to maintain flood insurance in perpetuity. So once you get elevated, every single person after you has to have flood insurance, and the city is expected to go after every person who purchases the property and maybe decides they don't want to do flood insurance. They don't have to. So it comes with some nuances. I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm just saying it didn't really fit for our community and the cost of construction that we have here.
Zoning on this. In the event your line of zone goes through only 3 feet of my house, do I have to commit to that full?
So you're talking about the flood
So-
zone lines? So
Yeah, if you can restate the question, Marcy.
Okay, yep. So the gentleman's asking, he's asking if you have multiple flood zone delineation lines that run through your property, do you have to build to which one, basically? So what we look at is we look at whatever portion of your house, either what you're planning to build. So if your design, if a corner of it touches a velocity zone or crosses over into a coastal A zone, then that is the one you'll have to adhere to. If your structure is not, if it's slightly out of one of those zones, the more restrictive zone, then you don't have to. So that's how we judge it. It's where your structure lands on the lot. Yes, the whole
Yeah, the
structure.
whole structure would have to comply.
Nope.
Nope,
The whole
structure.
thing. If one corner of the property, you have to, and you wouldn't be able to, at the end of the day, you wouldn't really build a house where you built one corner like that. Like once you start building it out and doing your breakaway walls and stuff like that, it's not, but it is whatever corner the structure touches. Well, yeah, that's what you can do. You don't have
can
to,
do
if you, yeah, you design your house so you don't touch it. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
If my footprint is exactly what it is, with no alteration to it, to go up on the existing foundation is there. Not raising a house. Build on the block, foundation is there. I get it, they need to do, underpinning and other kinds of, jack screws and things like that to structure, the footings.
Right.
But to build on that block and go up to that footage that you're claiming 14 feet, or whatever it's gonna be, and then do stick construction from there up.
So you can definitely do stick construction, and you can definitely vacate your existing level. Like, so if you're at grade home, you can vacate living that level, and then you can build your first living floor on top of that, leaving the structure in place. You would get a geotechnical engineer, and your structural engineer would decide how much underpinning you need. A lot of the homes built back then, the slab has no steel in it. The walls have no grout or steel in them. So sometimes it's a bit dicey. You have to retrofit it, but it is done.
It's possible.
Microwave wall scenario, to cut through the lentils and headers.
Yep.
Let's move,
Yeah, so hold on, yeah.
we can talk about individually later, but let's, more questions.
And I just wanted to jump in, so people are mentioning the flood zone and where they're at, so I just pulled up on the screen, it's the flood insurance rate map, FER map, that's how you can tell your elevation. So what the gentleman was mentioning earlier, or I think Marcy mentioned it, the coastal A zone, so if you search up this website, this is the URL, it's msc.fema.gov/portal/search. You could type in your address, then let's say you're over there, if you want to like zoom into one of the addresses. So if the elevation, so here, their elevation outside is 13, in between the two lines, looks like it's 12. And then, so the house goes in between the two lines, so the white line I'm looking at. So it would be the more restricted of those two. So that's elevation 12. Inside by the street is elevation 11. So elevation 12, that's the base flood elevation. So that's, the base flood is there's a 1% chance every year that there's going to be a flood that's going to reach elevation 12. And then at the city of Madeira Beach, we have a 4-foot freeboard. So that means new construction, the living space, has to be 4 plus 12, so I stink at math. What's that, 16? That's why I'm in this field and not accounting like the rest of my family. But yeah, it's msc.fema.gov/portal/search. We might have a link to it on our website too.
Yeah, we'll make the link available.
Can we go back and answer the previous question? It got off topic.
Was that the FEMA assistance for elevating your home?
How quickly can we get that process started?
Well, so you would demo the structure, and that can happen very quickly.
You could also elevate in place.
You could, yeah. Well, if you want to demo the structure, that can happen very quickly.
Get a permit pretty quick.
Yes, because we've had how many full demolition permits? About 30, I think.
We've had 12 completed so far, but there's close to 30, yes.
So those are property owners who have submitted a permit to demolish the entire structure.
And then building can start fairly quickly after, depending on.
Yeah, if you get, I mean, just there needs to be a permit filed for a
Yeah.
new structure, and obviously
Like I said-
has to be FEMA compliant. Go ahead.
Just to clarify, your demo permit is not a the question was right. Can you hear me now? Okay. The gentleman was asking, how quickly to get a demo permit. That's very quick. And then after that, then you need to submit the repair permit. What we would like to do, so you guys aren't dealing with 5 billion different permits and everything like that, you can upload, once you identify a contractor, you can email that information to us. You can upload it into the portal, those of you who are familiar with in the document section, and then we will take that same permit, the same project number, we'll change it from a demo permit to I'm building a new house, I'm remodeling, I'm doing this, this, and this, just so you'll have all your information in one space too. We will add that contractor's information into the permit and then send you the contractor information how they can then log into MGO and have access to that permit so they can schedule inspections, upload supporting documents and everything like that. Any repair work, any remodel work, anything like that, that has to go through a plan review process. Having a demo permit doesn't mean, okay, I can start making my repairs now and everything like that. Because then, again, the inspections need to be done, substantial, improvement information gathered. And the reason for that, we want everybody in their homes as quickly as possible. I know I've dealt with this. I was out of my home for almost 6 months before, and it's horrible. But we also don't want you to go make repairs to your house and not utilize your money properly because maybe those repairs can't be made and everything like that. So before you spend any money doing repairs and everything, please submit the demo permit, submit the other permit, wait for plan review, and again, with the inspectors going out, they can help guide you through this process.
And also with the full house demolition permits, believe it or not, we have to take quick photos. It's not the same as in the SDE, which takes a little longer of an inspection, but we found out from Cape Coral that they had issues even with full demolition homes. So we will run in and take quick pictures of it, but that process won't slow anything down.
You want to read some more questions? Or who has?
You want Frank to do some more building questions?
I quickly wanted just to talk about, just because a woman up here asked a good question. Even if the city doesn't go down the route of getting the FEMA grants, there's still something called the increased cost of compliance, or the ICC program. If, Joe, you want to pull that up real quick, it's just increased cost of compliance. FEMA will give you $30,000 to help offset the cost of elevating your house.
It's through your flood insurance company. So yeah. Ask your flood insurance agent. Sorry, Jay, I just want to make sure, yeah. So it's through your flood insurance, and they can guide you on what they need. Typically, it's a substantial damage letter from the city, or possibly just their knowledge that you've had repetitive losses. So the city will prepare that letter if you need that.
Yeah, I mentioned that a few minutes ago. So 10 years ago, the program that we had, I think it was 15 homes, approximately, and 13 of them had serious problems. that we're still trying to resolve after nearly 10 years later. No, but I mean, I will tell you that from what was communicated to me and what I've read, the city allocated over $1 million almost $2 million, because the city has to pay out the money and then be reimbursed. Well, the property owner pays the contractor for the work, submits it to the city reviews it, goes through FDEM to make sure that it meets the grant requirements. Then the city reimburses the property owner, and then the city gets reimbursed from FDEM. So it's a lengthy process. Could we make it available to hundreds of people? That's a good question. I don't know. Our budget probably could not handle that, but we're trying. I have had meetings with the county, so to have the county possibly begin, they're going to begin to do that in the unincorporated areas, but they did not state yet whether they would go into the barrier islands and do that for the cities, and in particular for cities even smaller than us, like the Reddingtons, but that remains to be seen, even if Pinellas County decides to pursue those grants or make them available for for property owners to elevate their home. So some more questions? Go for it.
I have a question here. Will we be required to rewire the entire house if the lower outlets got wet? Cloth wrapped wiring, even if the upper outlets did not get wet. If we are required to rewire the whole house, does that go against the 50%? The first part of that question, you will have to rewire not the whole house, just what's exposed. A lot of folks are taking, just to give you an example, 4 feet of drywall to the light switches. So if that's exposed and we're doing our walkthroughs, that's what needs to be brought up to code per the Florida Building Code. If you take 8 feet of drywall out, we've been to a couple of houses where, right up to the ceiling, that's exposed, that needs to be up to code. So the answer is whatever's exposed needs to be brought up to code according to the existing Florida Building Code. I'm sorry?
What chapter of the Florida Building Code? We can look that up and put it on our website.
It's in the existing Florida Building Code itself, but yes, we can post that.
We'll put that on our
make that
website.
note.
What section?
Yes.
Yeah. Any improvements that you make or you're planning to make, including the demo, just removing the drywall is part of your 50% up to the value of your structure. And again, we stated that the 50%, if you don't know what that is, go to the Pinellas County Property Appraiser website, pcpao.gov, enter your address. Under the tools toward the right, it's like a drop left. You click on it and it goes to your left. That gives you, it says FEMA letter or something like that. And you click on it and it brings you up a one-page document that tells you the value of your structure and the value of your land. And then it tells you this is the 50%. In other words, you can make improvements, repairs up to that amount. However, you are also allowed to obtain a private appraisal. So you can hire a company, appraise your structure. Say the property appraiser has your structure at $200,000. So under the FEMA 50% rule, you can make repairs, improvements up to $100,000. You obtain a private appraisal. Appraisal comes back and it says the structure is actually $300,000. Then that means you can make the improvements, repairs up to $150,000 based again on the structure, the value of your structure.
And we will,
Hold on.
a
Private appraisal, we accept them, and Marcy can clarify.
yeah, we do it.
Hold on. Let Marcy, go ahead, Marcy.
So we do accept private appraisals. They have to be in accordance with the requirement for the substantial damage submission. So they're called ACV, actual cash value appraisals. We have a checklist and a description. Please work with an appraiser who immediately says, oh, I know what you need, because a lot of them don't really know. They do the same thing they would give you for a mortgage, and we cannot accept that. So there's a series of requirements that we have to see on that appraisal to accept that. So make sure, we will make sure that That
That's on our
checklist is
website.
available.
So actual cash value. Hold- The structure, again, if you go to the property appraiser, it's on the structure. It is what the property appraiser lists on their website. It's right there. It'll say structure. You just have to go to your property and
Just
whatever.
value.
We don't set that amount. The property appraiser does. You'd have to ask them what it's based on. I don't know.
It says right there, approximate market value. So it says just value.
But remember, it's market value for the purpose of paying taxes. It's not necessarily what somebody would pay to purchase your property. Hold on. Hold on a moment. Do we have any more questions up here?
Sure. This one says, I don't want to spend money, then be told to tear down. If I wait 3 to 4 months, then more damage may occur. When will FEMA tell me what I can do officially? So first thing I want to say is FEMA is not going to be the one to tell you. We are going to be the ones to tell you. All right? As I mentioned, Frank and I have been doing inspections with other staff as well. After we do our walkthroughs and our inspections, we will email you a letter. And that's a substantial damage determination letter. And that'll tell you what we think the value of the structure is based on the county's numbers and what we think the amount of damage occurred was. All right? We'll give you that letter, and then you can decide what to do from that point. Now, you might not like that number. You might not like what it says on the letter. Okay? We're prepared for that, and that's okay. There are a lot of ways that you can appeal it. Okay? We talked about the private appraisal option. Another one is to get a contractor's estimate. If we say it's going to take $100,000 for you to repair your home from the condition that it's in right now to the condition that it was in the day before the storm, if you think that you can do it for less, you can get a certified contractor's estimate. That includes all the construction costs, your flooring, electrical, roof, whatever it may be. It's got to be one shot, all of it. The contractor, yes, the contractor, as long as they're licensed and they sign it and they say, I promise you that I can repair all of these repairs, I can do it for less than that number, you give that to us, we will accept it.
Make sure your contractor is licensed, because if any of you saw yesterday or today here at City Hall, yesterday, Pinellas County Sheriff's Office arrested 20 people, unlicensed contractors. As of 2 p.m. today, they had arrested 18 contractors. They will find contractors that are trying to take advantage, and they get one choice, and that choice when they make a fraudulent offer is they go to jail. They get a free trip to jail. So make sure you know who your contractor is. You have a question, a doubt, anything you want to find out about your contractor, the Pinellas County Construction Licensing Board, PCCLB, Pinellas County Construction Licensing Board, licenses.com, PCCLB.com, licenses every legitimate or licensed contractor, correct?
I want to be very clear.
You would need the same from each one, right?
Yeah, but
Correct.
But I want to be very clear. We have to review the cost estimates that come through. They cannot include any discounted materials. When we spoke with Cape Coral, they made it very clear that FEMA came in and said, your electrician has $1 figure per hour, your drywall person should be different, your HVAC. So they went through the bids that were accepted to make sure that they were correct. So we will have to do that same due diligence. It won't simply just be accepted at face value. It will be vetted, and we are coming up with a review process and a checks and balances in conjunction with Pinellas County to make sure we're all on the same page with all the data we're accepting. And our goal is to get with every municipality to make sure the messaging is the same, the viewpoints are the same, and that will help your contractors give you good numbers that they know, that we know are real and acceptable. Because you don't get credit for donated, if somebody donates something or does something for free. Everything has to be at market value, regardless of if somebody, like I said, if somebody donated
So
stuff.
yeah,
I mean, market prices for what people are being paid. So if you're an electrician, the average price of an electrician is
you
going.
can't donate your time and say,
Correct.
no, it was
Yeah.
donated. Right. Correct.
Correct. No, and, right. We're going
Yeah,
to come
but-
up with the base, yeah. Right. So that's what, yep.
Well, we
that's-
will tell you when you submit it.
Yep. That's what we're working with the,
So an
Yeah.
electrician can't come in and say, hey, I'm going to
Yeah.
charge you $5 an hour. Is that reasonable? No.
no. Yep.
Well,
So-
okay, hold on. Let's get
Yeah,
back.
to be clear-
Yes, ma'am. The substantial, if you can go over the substantial
Yeah,
damage.
so
value.
the substantial,
Yeah, just
so-
go ahead, Marcy.
Yeah, so she was asking, she was referring to, she had been told that there was a substantial damage estimation tool that was giving higher values for the actual cash value that you could use, and the values were higher than what you were seeing in the FEMA letter. So we started using that program about a week and a half ago, and we're kind of vetting how to navigate it. It is a tool that's created by FEMA, and is the same tool as Pinellas County is using, and I believe probably most every other municipality around here. Based on our meeting with Pinellas County and how the tool is being utilized, we are having to go by, unless we have a private appraisal, we have to use the Pinellas County property appraiser value. To be honest with you, at the end of the day, there was a little, you weren't getting much more out of it, honestly, so either the Pinellas County property appraiser or a private appraiser, the private appraiser is going to give you your best value for that. So, so that tool is being used. So,
They haven't made that determination yet. And I wouldn't, at this point, yeah, so the tax collectors are deciding what to do, and I think Hillsborough announced, I don't think Pinellas announced yet, what they're doing regarding property taxes, what the impact will be, again, even if you demolish your home and build a new one, what will that value be? Will it be more than, double or triple? They have not made that determination, but I think we just don't know yet. That would be a great question for the tax collector to figure out. But, understood, right. Right, but you have, within reason, your house had and remember, the land is a big part of it as well. The land isn't going to change. Yes, your structure may change. If you had a 1,500 square foot house, single story, now your 1,500 square foot house is in 2 levels, but your actual living space, say, is now 1,200, would that lower your property, the valuation of your structure? I don't know, probably, but we just don't know what that impact will be. As people have been demolishing homes and building up, yes, there's a higher value, because typically what's happening is they're building a 2-level house, and I think in a lot, Frank can tell, but the square footage has grown. And so when your square footage grows, the value increases. Go ahead.
Marcy and I and several other staff were on a meeting with Pinellas County plus other municipalities, and Mike Tweedy was on the call it all as well. Probably tomorrow on the PCA, the Pinellas County Property Appraiser's Office, which again is pcpao.gov, they're going to have his official information response, because these are, I know, a lot of questions and concerns. But he was basically alluding to us that your property taxes aren't going to be affected. It's only going to be changed if you have additional square footage. So if you're replacing your homes the same, square footage, that nothing's going to change with your property taxes. But they should have that posted on their website, so you're hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. Don't listen to what your neighbor says. Hell, don't listen to what I say, about it. Go to the property appraiser's office and listen to what Mike Tweedy says, because he is the property appraiser.
He's the property appraiser.
And
for
they will
Pinellas
have
County.
all that information on there, so you can get that from them.
Well, let's go-
The city doesn't have anything to do with your property taxes or anything like that.
More questions, Jay?
Will FEMA require any residence to be raised up if that structure had 18 inches or greater water flood? The answer to that is no, not necessarily. Potentially yes, potentially no. It depends on the type of construction material you used, how it affected your plumbing, your air conditioning, your cabinets, your electrical work. It's going to be done, it's going to have some context to it depending on when your structure was built, these types of things. So we can't across the board say that if you had 18 inches of water, one way or another. This is another one that kind of goes back to what we were touching on earlier. Can you do some of the work yourself, like tile or drywall, demo, without meeting the 50%? So that work that you're doing still has a value to it, and so that does come out of your 50%. I know that's one of the more unpopular things that we've had to tell people, but what we're talking about is the value of the work. We're not going to ask you for, a receipt if you're doing it yourself, you're a homeowner, you're pulling out your own drywall. There's still a value associated to that. So we would associate a value with that, and that would come out of the 50%. We're going to be using a variety of different software tools and like locally derived information to figure out what is a fair and accurate number for that
work that was done.
Potentially, yeah.
Hold on, let's just let Frank, anything?
I have a question here. If you're fully mitigated and ready to hang drywall, how quickly can we get inspectors to close the walls in? First of all, you got to start with the demo permit, like we discussed earlier. That starts the whole process. You need to apply for a demo permit. You won't get any inspections till we do the follow-up with our inspection, both Jay and I. Once that happens, then it'll turn into a demo permit. You can go through the process. But again, it all starts with the demo permit. You have to apply for a demo permit.
They have to go through the inspection first. Yeah, if they've gone through the inspection, go ahead.
Yeah, you have to wait before you do any remodel until, you get the information from after the results of your demo inspection. You can submit your remodel permit. I know a lot of people have contractors and they're familiar with MGO and everything like that. Submit that information, get it in there, but know that it's going to take some time before it's gone through the review process, but you can get all that information in now. We can get it into the system, and you'll be able to track the progress. You'll be able to see when the plan review starts. You'll get any notification emails from the planning department or building department like, hey, we need this information. We have this question. You'll get, and then, someday when it's approved, which, that will happen someday, you'll be able to pay for your permit repairs, get your inspection scheduled and everything like that.
And
But
again,
yes, you
we're
can
adding
submit.
staff to get through those reviews and those inspections sooner rather than later. Jay, any other? Yep. Hello?
So we're actually, we're going to be using, we're going to pull from sources to create an Excel sheet that is consistently used. So we're working with the county, again, to make sure that whatever values we're using match what our sister cities are using as well. So we're going to make sure we're consistent there, and I'm sure there will be ranges associated with that. So we are actively working on that. Cape Coral was kind enough to also offer up theirs for us to kind of look at as well. So we are looking at the tools that we can use, but it will be consistent, and we'll use the same tool repeatedly.
Yeah, we're not going to err on the side of putting people out of their homes, right? Of course not. That's not what we're trying to do. At the same time, we have to realize that we are going to be audited by FEMA. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Everyone on the barrier islands, we're all going to be audited, and we're going to have to answer for every decision that we make, right, in regards to people who are substantially damaged, who are not substantially damaged, who are completely demolishing their homes, elevating their homes. We're going to have a reason for showing consistently across the board, these are the numbers that we're using. We're not showing favoritism towards this, that, the other, flood zone, anything like that. We have to be consistent. So right now we're carefully trying to build our operating procedure in place so that we can stand up to the scrutiny that we know and we're fully expecting to receive from FEMA.
So, Jay, just go read some more questions.
Yep. One question I have is what year the FEMA 50% rule came into effect. This is not a new rule. We've been participating in the NFIP since the 70s, so it's been in effect since then. And then they're also asking if FEMA 50% has ever been challenged in court. I actually have a court case in front of me. If anyone's interested, it's Turnpike Realty Co. v. Town of Dedham. That challenged the constitutionality of the NFIP, and they ruled that it was constitutional. So it's something that it's been, FEMA 50% has been in place since, I think, 1968, and then we started participating sometime in the 70s. So it's not a new thing. This is just the first time that we've gotten hit with a storm like this.
Next question. Well, go ahead, Joe.
This one is, if there's no foundation or slash structural damage, does the 50% still apply? Yes, the 50% still applies regardless of what kind of damage you have. We're still going to be looking, we're going to find that 50% number, we're going to estimate the cost of repairs from what they are. That's why Frank and I are going around, we're trying to get our eyes on what the actual damage is so that we can figure out where you and your home stands as far as the amount damage that you've had.
And the tool we're using is very consistent and comes with very specific guidelines on how the numbers that we have to use based on certain criteria. So at that stage when we're utilizing the tool, which is where we're at now, having followed up and collected the data from the inspections and the pictures, we still have guidelines that we have to follow when we're assessing the percent damage. And that's when it comes into play. If you do get a letter that based on this tool renders your property as substantially damaged, you have the opportunity, and we will include this, to appeal that decision because you get to come back and go, my engineer said I have no foundation damage, so take that off the table. My electrician said I'm only 12.5% damaged, so lower that number. So that will be part of the process, but it's also part of our due diligence on the front end and following, again, criteria for the substantial damage determinations.
The question, will we have the ability to see the spreadsheet on the city's website? I think the spreadsheet that you've been referencing.
The one that will be, so any information we have, we'll make everything available to the public. So if whatever tools we decide to use, right now you can go home and type in substantial damage estimator tool. It'll come up and you can go in there, you can play with it, do whatever you want to. So that's right there available for you. So anything that we have, our goal is to make you as informed as possible. We are here to help. So we are not here to not share information, but we have to do our due diligence in all of this process. So we will make everything available.
And another tool that I've used in the past to determine fair market value, this was before the storm, is homewise.com. I don't know if we're still going to be using that. We have to be consistent with all of them, but that gives a general idea. You could type in stucco, and then you could adjust the amount of square footage, and it'll tell you you put in the zip code, and it'll tell you what the fair market value is. So that's a good resource too when it comes to fair market. Homewise.com, I believe, if you type in Homewise.
It's spelled HOMEWYSE.com.
HOMEWYSE.com.
Yeah, it's a very good tool. Like Joe said, put your zip code in there, whatever job you're doing, whether you're putting a fence outside or whether you're putting drywall up. It's a very good tool to use. We use it. A lot of folks in the county use that.
I have a question about businesses. So for any business, there are quite a few businesses that have reopened, and more, are expected this week. We do, and the chief, we are pretty much inspecting for the health, life safety and health codes to make sure that you did not have damage that would impede or alter or prevent the complying with the health and safety, life safety codes. So those have been occurring. We did have multiple inspectors out. I believe we've covered nearly the entire city. I know we have one here that says that I'm a business owner and I can't seem to get the city to approve me. I'm not sure what that is, so I can open my business again. But I have the information. I'll give it to our fire marshal and make sure that they have been out there or what the need is.
Yeah, so every single occupancy in the city has had their fire and life safety evaluation, and there's been some that have been black tagged as far as
Which
the life
means-
safety aspect. We're saying that it's not ready to be either lived in
Or utilized.
or utilized. So that black tag will then go to red, then yellow, then green as improvements are made.
Thanks. And I think we have about a dozen currently, including some sizable condos that are
Yes.
not structurally safe. So until such time as they pass those,
And
Again,
just because it gets black tagged from us doesn't mean that the building department will black tag it as well. Where's that information? That's through the fire marshal's office.
Jay?
So this one is asking, how do you track what is spent? We did talk about contractor estimates. I wanted to just talk about something that we have. Goes for even before the storm. When you're adding value and you're improving, as we say, your structure, we have something called a substantial improvement packet, right? And some of you who've done remodel work, if you added a bathroom, things like that, you'll be familiar with this. And what it is it has the breakdown of every type of improvement that you have with the labor and the materials for it. And then you'll sign it, the contractor will sign it, and you'll break out every cost that you have and total it up at the bottom. And then we'll look at those numbers, we'll vet them with our formulas that we're working with, and then we'll compare them to make sure that they're in the same ballpark, and then we compare that to the 50% value. So that's kind of that's the basic overview of how this is actually going to go through. Once we get past the demo permit, the demo inspection phase, you get your letters, you've settled your appeals if you want to do a private appraiser. Like I said, we've talked about the contractor estimates. It's got to be reasonable, right? And then, we're here to help you, get through that. Planning, obviously, for the zoning questions, if you have structures that are over the setback or encroaching, we'll help you work through that. Building will help you on the side as far as your materials, your inspections, things like that. But other than that, that's just how that's going to be our process for doing and tracking the improvements.
And adding on to that, you had mentioned there's the substantial improvement packet. If you go to the city's website, substantial improvement packet, it's one of the requirements for a remodel permit. And also I'm getting a lot of questions on what counts towards the FEMA 50% rule. It's anything to the structure that's built in. So something that's not part of the structure, like a pool or fence, would not count. Something that's not structurally attached, like a plug-in appliance, would not count. On that substantial improvement packet, it has a breakdown, I think, on page 3, that has a complete list of things that count and don't count against the FEMA 50% rule. So if you look that up on our website, substantial improvement packet has a breakdown there.
If I could, Marcy has a great analogy to help people understand what counts towards your 50% rule. Imagine your home before all this happened, and you turned it upside down. Everything that falls out of that home doesn't count towards your 50%. Everything else that's still in your home, your electric, your doors, your windows, your roof, all that stuff, that counts towards your 50%. Foundations,
Foundation
yep.
support. Foundation support. Yes. Yep. Right. You want to?
So that's a great question.
No.
Because we are determining substantial damage, we have to determine the cost to return your home to its pre-storm state. So even if you wanted to come in and spend less and to invest into your property, if you are declared substantially damaged, everything you do has to assume that you are returning it to its pre-storm state, and that's the consistent viewpoint that is taken on that. So that's a great question.
Go ahead, sir. Will we provide an itemized list of what needs to be prepared after you submit the demo permit? Correct.
Then will you itemize the things that you find that you determine?
I think, go,
Yeah, so
go ahead, Marcy.
So how the tool works is the substantial damage estimator tool takes into account blocks of information. So you have your foundation, exterior finish, interior finish, HVAC, doors and windows, cabinets. And all of that ties back into how much water we had on our island and how much got into your home or on the exterior, depending on which component you're looking at. So that is how the tool works, and that is the information that is input. It does not go down to say, okay, the base cabinets in bathroom number 1 have to be replaced, but the pedestal in bathroom number 2 is okay. That's not how it functions. So it's more of a grouping of those types of elements that make up your home, basically. Does that? Each, we'll show you what we determine. So we'll say, like, if for your electrical, we'll follow our guidelines, and if the electricals, if based on what your home experience, the electrical, I have to follow the box, and the matrix says, okay, based on this information, electrical is damaged 75%. So that's how you'll see from us. It won't be specific, but that output summary will be shared with you, and that is your opportunity then to hire a contractor, your electrician, to come back and say, I've looked at the home and it's actually only going to be this much damage. So those are how the components break down and how the tool intakes information. So we will not line item out bit by bit the specifics of it, but it will be grouped together with electrical, plumbing, things like that. Yep, so that's correct. So the way the tool works is if I were to go in and, you have homes that are constructed slab on grade with concrete block. So I get to go in and put all those features in there. If it's wood framed, wood subflooring, all those components go in there. And then it assigns each component that it's looking at a percentage of what it is. So like it says, okay, 20% of the value of your home is in your superstructure. 11% is in your foundation. And it does that so you can imagine if you have a slab foundation, concrete foundation, it'll be higher than if you just had like a wood framed crawl space or something like that. So it takes all those into account and assigns them a percentage, and it gives you a weighted value based on the input. So, and those output summaries will be available to you guys, and we'll share the matrix that we're following, so you guys will understand why those numbers look like they do.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Rob. I'm sure people in here are asking this question because I'm getting asked all the time, being in the business that I'm in. Is there a generic number? A lot of people are in the decision-making process right now. What can we do? What should we do? And a lot of the stuff we're talking about is pretty granular. And you've got to get the permit, and you've got to wait for the inspection. You've got to do all these things and get the estimates to understand where we are. We're talking 3, 4, 5 weeks, 6 weeks down the line, potentially. There are people that want to know what they can do, or even is there a hint of being able to rebuild their house? Is there a generic number that you're using per square foot for a concrete block house that says, if you had substantial damage, how much is going to be rebuilt? Silliest thing being put out in the announcement today, if you have 2 feet of water or 2 feet of drywall or less being pulled out, $38 a square foot. As an estimator, just to say, are you close? And if it's over 2 feet, it's $76 a square foot for the living area of your house. That way you can see if you're close. If you're not even close to that FEMA 50% number, we're done, right?
Right.
Unless you know you can get got substantial upgrades recently, and you can get a new appraisal that says you've got a higher building value. But you may be some of our little bungalows that were built forever ago, like my office like that, that only have $90,000 value, like $45,000. And I've got 50 square feet. I'm out of the I'm dead, right? But some people want to know, my
Marcy, I think only St. Petersburg is doing that right now.
Chance, and if there's a chance, then let's go through the process and get more finely tuned. But if I'm so far out of the element, I can make a decision on what to do now instead of waiting 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks before I go, oh, yet anyway, I gotta sell the property or I gotta tear it down.
And a couple of other things that St. Pete did, Russ, they took away the look back 1 year to 0. So I wasn't really clear what you guys were saying, whose decision that is, and we'll look at that.
We will, and that's actually up for discussion at our next commission meeting on November the 13th, and it appears we may be moving to removing the 1-year look back. Yes, that is a few weeks away.
0 permits through March, up to the end of March.
Hold on, so,
So, a real, yeah.
That might be helpful, and so I'd like to understand where those are.
Yep.
One other comment, and
hold on, let's just answer, because if you want to,
Yeah.
Marcy, provide
Yeah,
to,
it's- So in
could restate.
anticipation of the amazing Board of Commission group that we have, I am fully anticipating that our look back will be addressed. So city staff right now is instructed, we are not looking at, we are only looking at the substantial damage issue in front of us with these storms. We are not trying to look back on properties to figure out if they added a roof or windows or anything like that. We are focused on substantial damage right now.
yeah, that is the current process.
So,
Well,
okay.
I'm sorry, what was the?
Mike's question. So Mike said, and I think everybody probably heard him, about, can we give you a gut check number? So again, it goes back to our utilization of the tool. And because you have those multiple components that are assigned weighted percentages of your structure, it's hard for me to tell you how to gut check that. But the data that we are using, and to be consistent again, you're going to hear this from me, we're in conjunction with Pinellas County and other municipalities. For that tool, we're using $205 a square foot. So that's the value that we've been given. And remind you, this conversation came out just in the last day or two. But with that becomes the weighted, but everything gets weighted down. So it's not like the full. Because of how it gets weighted down, it's not as straightforward as it would sound like. So, but that is the number we're using and plugging into the system. But again, it's not a one-for-one comparison with how the percentages are weighted.
Jay, you had the.
Yes, so to your point, so yeah, so it gets depreciated as well. So all those things it's kind of a moving formula, I should say.
Jay, we don't have very many, but
So,
we only have a very few open permits. But I think we'll take that and probably not include those.
the decision around that will be weighted in the best interest of the homeowner. So whatever decision we make about the open permits and the look back, stuff like that, we have been instructed we are looking at substantial damage right now. If we do have open permits, one-offs, we can discuss those, but whatever decision we make will be in the best interest of the property owner, and we'll work with them based on whatever permit that was and what they were doing and see how we make that work. So yeah, we don't have too many though.
Jay, go ahead.
On a slightly different topic, the flood level has increased over the last 30 years. Can you/the city recommend a reasonable increase of flood level over the next 20 years so a house raised up now might be raised additional few feet to meet future levels considering anticipated sea level rise? So our 4-foot freeboard is I would say, one of the most forward-looking, shall we say, of all of our adjacent municipalities. So I would say that we're in a pretty good spot. You think about the surge from Helene and what we're preparing for, right? So the map that Joe has pulled up, our flood insurance rate map, we're talking about 10, 11, 12 feet of water I mean, above sea level, right? And we're talking about how standing on the ground and a lot of parts of the city is 3-4 feet. I mean, we're talking about 6 feet, 7 feet, off the ground, right? So we're already preparing for that, and we're trying to go 4 feet above that, right? So, and we'll see where we're at in 30 years, but I think for now, this is definitely a workable, level that we're at. And considering we don't want to leave people behind either, right? We want, this is a big shock to all of us and a lot of people who we've been lucky for many years for the most part. And now we're in a much different situation. And you can just look at the devastation that it's had and how much different outcomes we've had with people who have newer construction and have been elevated per the Florida Building Code and those who aren't. I mean, we see it every day, and we're going to continue to work through that. But yeah, I think our code that we have is very robust for the long-term value and, safety of your home.
And just to give you guys an idea, Helene's surge was estimated to be between 8 and 8.5 feet elevation in some areas. So that's what we looked at with Helene. Yes, so, correct.
Above sea level. Any other Jay or Joe? Questions?
I have a question here. What happens for people that are doing the work, remodel work illegally? What happens if you choose not to get a permit? Back on the substantial improvement packet, it lists some of the consequences. So you're risking, if you do work illegally, you're risking having FEMA come audit. So FEMA did an aerial map. They have images with everyone's debris outside. There's a picture of every single house with the water line. So they are going to audit us, and they are going to expect a permit for every single house. So when we get audited and when we find that the addresses that don't have permits, we don't know the exact consequences yet, but some of the possibilities range from court dates to having to tear down the entire house, having to rip out the improvements that were done. So it is serious consequences if you choose to do the work. At first, it might get done faster if you do it illegally without the permit, because obviously the permitting is going to take some time. But in the long term, there's going to be some consequences, so just something to keep in mind. Also, I wanted to bring up anyone that's thinking about building a new house or raising their house. We have some provisions in our land development regulations that allow the new house, if someone has setback requirements or the distance that the structure has to be from the property line, we allow the new structure in R1 and R2, which is most of the residential zones, to be elevated in the same footprint. So if your house right now is over the required setback, you can keep that. If you tear down and build a new house, you could keep the same footprint, or if you elevate the existing structure, as long as it doesn't encroach, as long as it's in the same footprint, you can keep those setbacks. So those are some common questions.
Make sure to email any zoning questions is it our planning at MadeiraBeachFL.gov. That's our general email, because some of these can be kind of complicated questions because there's a lot of non-conforming structures that may not meet setbacks or lot size or density or intensity. So it can vary on a case-by-case basis, and it can take some time to do research and kind of figure out what cannot be done with the property. So make sure they email it or planning at MadeiraBeachFL.gov.
Go ahead, Barb.
Yeah, just to go over contact emails again. If you need to reach someone in the building department, that includes me, that includes Frank, building official, Samantha Arison, Holden Pinkard. Email building department, department's abbreviated DEPT, at MadeiraBeachFL.gov. If you need to reach the planning department, that includes Jay, Joe, Andrew, Marcy, it's planning at MadeiraBeachFL.gov. To reach any city employee, all of our email addresses are our first initial, our last name, with the at MadeiraBeachFL.gov. But if you email those two things, they are monitored, by
Quickly.
I can't even talk. They're monitored, and you get response. If we can't give you an answer, we do forward your email to whoever can help you.
And we are
Joe?
a little behind in some of the answers because we have been in the field doing them, so please bear with us on the email responses. We're trying to get to them as quickly as possible. Some of you might probably got emails from me on Sunday, so trying to get to them as best as we can.
Joe?
Another question I have here is, someone said in July 2023, their appraised value of the home was $975,000. Then we added a new roof, new windows, another remodel, about $80,000. Will this be added into the house value? To answer that, so likely their appraisal of 975 was their appraisal they got with their mortgage. Like Marcy mentioned earlier, we have to be strict with the appraisals we accept. It has to be an actual cash value appraisal. I have the exact criteria we're looking for posted with me in the open permit hours that we're hosting from 11 to 3:30. But so that likely the appraisal wasn't the right type because it has to be appraisal just on the structure. But hypothetically, if it was, then they add the roof on the remodel work, they would need a new appraisal. Otherwise, we would go based off likely the county's valuation. So the letters on their website, it's based on what they do. We don't know the exact date. I've seen it update relatively frequently for some properties, and then I've seen it stay the same for other properties over the course of a long period of time. So we don't know exactly when that updates, and it's property by property.
Jay, any other questions?
I just wanted to address something that I don't know if we got a full answer on. If, as far as itemizing the repairs, when Frank and I or anyone else from the office is going to go out and do these inspections, we're going to note, okay, you're missing the bottom part of your countertops. You had to take them out. They got wet. They got moldy. They got to go out. When it comes time to do the remodel permit, we're going to look at those notes, and on that substantial improvement packet that I was talking about, we're going to look for the cabinets, the labor and the materials that's going to cost to replace that. So I don't think it's necessarily that we're going to be doing an itemized list per se, but we are going to keep general track of what was damaged, and we're going to be looking for that because we know how tempting it is going to be to put a few things off the books that maybe we didn't see, or if it could just lower some of the value with it. But we are going to have to look at everything that was damaged and look for that again on the substantial improvement. And we're going to have hundreds, if not thousands of those to go through. So if you can get it complete and accurate the first time around, you're going to save yourself a lot of time that may be more worth it for you in the long run. And again, if you have questions about that, we're happy to assist you with that. And, take what we say and please share it as long as it's from us, the city. And I know there's a lot of misinformation when you aren't being told things, you begin to speculate. But, our goal tonight and going forward is just to get as much information and answer as many questions as possible so that you can then share them and take those. And if you have more questions later on, we can continue to go through the process.
Joe?
Question I have here is about the no fees for the permits, that we shouldn't be profiting from citizens in a tough situation. So just to clarify, the no fees, it's for the demo work right now until the 20th. So if you come in and get a demo permit, there's no fee for that. Right now, the fees for permits, it's 2% of the project value. That's probably something that can be discussed in a commission meeting how that's being looked at, but we still have to account for the staff time that we're putting into review. The building department is separately funded. That's a Florida statute, so we can't take that out of tax money, so that has to come from somewhere.
Permit fees are going to be discussed at our next board meeting.
Yeah, we're going to look to review the permit fees and consider lowering the permit fee. The percentage right now, it's 2% of the value of the work, so we're going to look to do that. Frank? We're waiving right now for demo, for anything related to demolition to the work. Not everyone, so check, but not all of them have waived all their permit fees. Right, but not all of them. Not every city has waived. Some cities are still charging permit fees even for the demo work, and then there isn't a city that has waived them a la carte. So, right. I heard you. Got it. Thank you. Go ahead, Frank.
I got a question. Can you use a private provider for inspections, a structural engineer due to the hurricane? Yes, you can use a private provider, but there's a process for that. That private provider has to submit to the building department their credentials. You can't hire anybody that says they're a private provider unless they have these credentials, and they have to be submitted to us along with that permit for documentation and file.
And we still have to do the SDE inspection, so that will not negate us or the SDE team that's coming from reviewing the property.
The substantial damage review. Right.
I have another question. Are professionally signed docs required for simple repairs, i.e. replace duplex floors and 48-inch drywall? The second part is, what are the level of renovation that will require signed professional docs? Professional signed docs are only required for structural work. And with structural work is moving a main wall. If you move a wall in your house and it's not structural, it doesn't need documents from a signed engineer. But if it's structural, then it does. Give you an example, a header, changing a window or a door frame, things like that. The second part of the question was level of renovation will require signed. Again, for a standard remodel work, you don't need signed documents. You don't need that for remodel work. But if it entails structural, and again, to give you an example on structural, you have an existing deck and you want to change the floorboards. The top of the floorboards can be changed, but the joists, things like that, that needs the signed documents. Does that make sense?
Joe? Yeah, you have to go through it. No one is exempt from it. Nobody's exempt from it. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your structure. We have to follow it because that's the current rule and the current law. Yep. Yep. Yes. Well, yeah, we're going out and inspecting drywall. Yes.
Yeah, so when we go to your house, you know, we'll walk through and then you'll show us, hey, listen, my electrical boxes are made out of PVC, or I have hardy board, or I have these things that don't need to be replaced, and you know, we'll note that. So that way, further on down the line, we're not going to say, okay, well, where's your cost to rewire? You know, you showed us and said, okay, I have these things in place on purpose. So that's part of the reason that we're trying to go out there and to see the properties. We don't want to sit back and just say, well, you got this much water. You know, we don't know exactly what's in there. So to your point, you know, that's why we're doing this. You know, why we're going out there is so that we can talk to y'all and say, okay, let's talk through. I know your AC got a little bit of water. Is it still running? You know what I mean? Is it functional? Does it need to be replaced? Can it be replaced a year from now? Can it get there, or is this going to be a hazard? So we're here to kind of work through these specific questions. What I'm curious about, I know there's going to be a lot of questions about people's specific properties, about what their options are, or something you don't agree with, FEMA's rules, you know, discounting work, this, that, the other. I want to know, what are we confused about? Is there anything that you saying, I'm confused, I would like to know the answer because I just don't know, I'm just confused. I want to go off of that. Is that all right, Robin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. That is correct. Go. They, because it was damaged by a storm, that's why we have to go through this process. Go ahead.
All right, so for the majority of people that would like to renovate their home, bring it back to condition, when we meet you, Jay, and Frank and Marcy out there, just for confusion, if I met you out there with an actual cash value appraisal, certified, done properly, is that all I need to do? Do you still have to do the SDE, substantial damage, or do you just
Yep.
take my appraisal at 50% and that's my number that I can start the process? That's an important question for a lot of people.
So we wouldn't, if you had an appraisal, I would suggest that if you have one that qualifies and meets all the requirements, you can submit that to us. Then what we can do with the substantial damage tool is we can toggle over to use your appraised value. And if that works, then you still have to do a permit packet. You still have to do the substantial improvement packet because That documents the level of work that you're going to put back into the home and is our verification that it's still under 50%. So yes, if you have an ACV that can be used, we will take that into consideration up front and not have to, we could take an extra step out, yes.
For those who want to rebuild their home, highly advised, get a serious actual cash value appraisal now. So when you meet them, you can give it to them, so you don't have to fight this appeal process back and forth and waste lots of time. That's just, I think, is that my saying?
I think that's good advice, you know, especially if you go on the property appraiser, you pull up the tool, you see that, and you don't like that number because X, Y, and Z, things you've done, I think that's great advice. Go ahead and get that done now.
I just wanted to also point out, and I think they've been here, but our three other commissioners that are also in the room, Commissioner Hoosh in the back, Commissioner Kerr, and McGeehan up here. So thank them for coming out. So your full commission is here. Did you any other questions to read? Or
Yeah, I
we
got
can-
some. So I have,
we-
majority of them, I'm looking at the questions that are left. I don't want anybody to feel like they're left out, but I feel like we've answered some of them. Most of them are around the value of the home. Can we get a private appraisal? And we've answered that one. You can. Obviously, it has criteria to meet, so we'll make that available to you guys. Yep, somebody was asking about during the inspection for demo, FEMA rep stated a number to base 50% off of. It was different than Pinellas property appraisal site. Is that possible? And yes, it is. Typically on-site will be the lower of any values you'll see. So it does make sense that somebody could have a different value from whatever means and methods this individual had. So that is very possible.
And the insurance amount too. I got a question about that too, was, you know, my insurance is only going to pay me this, or they're going to pay me that much. Does that affect my 50%, my valuation? That's separate from us. That's a separate, you know, metric.
And just so you guys do know, we do get all the flood insurance claims. So what we'll do is most properties are being visited or have been visited, so we suspect probably every 7 days we'll get a batch of all of the flood insurance claims. So we do get those, and we can use those in conjunction with as part of our documentation. It doesn't drive any of our decisions, but it is supporting documentation for reviews and things like that. So we will have access to all those that come through. So if renovations were done pre-Helene, but I didn't get a chance to get a new appraisal, can we backdate an appraisal? So we expect the appraisal to represent your pre-storm condition. So we understand that the appraiser may have to go back and use some photos that you have, maybe some photos online. Anything that represents the quality of the structure right before the storm will be in your best interest. So yes, we do expect that they'll be dated today, but they'll be based on the condition of the home prior to the storm.
Yes, sir.
It was before
Yeah,
2.0.
it was. It's been around.
I was,
Okay, well, we can-
sorry.
I will address the first part of that.
Go ahead, Jay.
So I'm not familiar with, you know, what's that 17 number is from. We've got to take a local context because there's not going to be a number that the federal government is going to give us to say that. Well, yeah, but that's, I mean, we would look at a local context. That's kind of the end of it all. Okay.
Thank you. We're
we
familiar
have
with the
to look.
Constitution.
We have to look at the local context of what the market is and also differentiate the values between electrician, plumbing, drywall. You know, you're going to be paying less to install drywall than to install an electric panel, right? We can all agree with that, right? So we are going to be taking, you know, a close look and fine tune that so that we're not grossly underestimating or grossly overestimating any of our valuations. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So we have started utilizing the tool. We had a countywide meeting with the municipalities yesterday to give some more concise, it was yesterday, right?
Yes.
Everything, this
Yes.
week for sure, to give us more concise directions on the expectations. And the real reason was just, again, to make sure we're in concert with all of our adjacent communities. Having come out of that meeting yesterday, I've only started running a few properties. And based on the tool, it is coming back with substantial damage determinations on the few that I've ran. So I don't want to scare anybody, but that's the truth of the question you asked. So, and we've only done a few of them. So, yeah, that's kind of where we're at now, is digesting that data.
Yes, ma'am.
You guys talked about going back to the FEMA relationship where Madeira Beach plays out, right? And I know that you're rated a 6 with the CRS program. I would share, and you shared that gives you discounts, flood insurance. Well, many of us that have flood insurance here, I can tell you that translated for me to $14. So I think
Yeah,
that
it's
you guys take a look at where you need to be. I think everybody in the room sure wants to have flood insurance, so we certainly don't want to not participate with FEMA, but there's a level that I hope you all are going to look at to see what makes sense so that it can be, an advantage to our.
Certainly, sure.
Absolutely.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so the comment was about our CRS rating of a 6, which community rating system that gives us a discount. I believe it's about 20% on flood insurance. And the homeowner said that to them was only about $14. So her hopes to the city is that we do what we can to still stay a part of the National Flood Insurance Program, so we still get the benefits such as federally backed mortgages and the ability to provide flood insurance, but not go overboard where the CRS rating isn't really benefiting that much. So just do what we need to stay in. That was their comment, and I'm sure the commission will take that into account at the next commission meeting.
I will tell you, as a resident here, but again, I've been here, lived in Madeira Beach 31 months. I've been the city manager for 34 months. I'm most concerned about not being reimbursed. And again, not my decision, but that is something to consider. How do we balance that is a huge, huge, huge decision. So do we pull out completely? Again, the decisions that we have. No, not that I don't think the lawsuits are going to go anywhere, honestly. Pretty much how the federal government works is how the federal government works. They set the rules. You either follow them or you don't. You don't follow them, you have to deal with the consequences. That's the reality of how things work. Yes, ma'am.
So just to reiterate, the question was, what's the next permit that you need, if I understood the question correctly? So the process, again, it starts, everybody would need the inspection, and to get the inspection, you'll need an interior demolition permit, or if you know that you want to get out of the flood zone, the science shows that the flood is going to happen again. Eventually, you just want to get it over with. If you're elevated, just so that it's clear, you don't have to worry about the FEMA 50% rule. It's only for houses that are not elevated. But sorry, I lost my train of thought.
What's the next step in the permit?
Next step, so the first step is to pull your interior demolition permit. You can do that online on our website. If you're having trouble, like we mentioned, we're in the fitness center from 11 to 3:30, Monday through Friday, doing it for people and answering questions one-on-one. After that, we'll add you to the inspection list. And as we get down to you, the process is we're sending the current status is we send an email. We send 3 emails to let you know when you're on the schedule. And then we'll come by, do the inspection, and then shortly after the inspection, we'll send you by email the results of your inspection and your options and next steps. Yep, the email will tell you how to turn the permit into, if you're under 50%, a remodel, or whatever choice you decide to go with.
But
So if you choose to elevate your structure or build a new structure, you don't have to complete the substantial improvement packet, but everyone that's not elevated is going to need the inspection, which would require the permit. Someone asked the time frame for something such as minor repairs. Again, we still need to do the inspection. Last I checked the inspection list, there was about 150 to 200 people waiting for inspections. But right now, we're just our normal city staff, but we requested additional support from FEMA, from the county. So hopefully, as soon as that comes, that'll speed things up. Right now, we're working as fast as we can. We got, I think, about 18 inspections today.
Right, when we get those additional inspectors, that will definitely help expedite the process. And to the lady in the back, I know you've had your inspections already, so I believe the question was, what's the next step? What you're, as, Jay and Frank have the information that they've gathered from the inspection, and that's got to be filled out with planning and zoning, has to fill out that substantial improvement determination, everything like that. And then you will get a letter from them giving you guidance on what the next steps can be. So,
It's anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks after after the inspection to get that letter, about a week, right? Or just a few days. It should be just a few days.
It really comes down, the reason that I kind of deflect these questions is because, if it's just going to be me and Frank, it's going to take a very long time, right? Now, we have help on the way, is what we're being told, is that we have help on the way. And that should dramatically improve the amount of inspections that can be done. And then we can start, because right now I feel like we're taking in more inspections today than we're actually able to do in a day, right? So the list is continuing to grow. If we can get these resources in and these people to help out, we can start to turn the tide and start knocking out a lot of these inspections. And then we'll have a more accurate number of when you can expect these things to be done. But all we can ask now is for your patience as we go through this, because at this time, we're not differentiating by major damage, minor damage, commercial property, investment property, homesteaded property. We're not differentiating. It's first come, first serve. And, until we find a better way to do that, if there is a better way to do that, then we'll go for that. But that's how it is currently.
And we are working 7 days a week, so we're not taking weekends off. We are working every day, all day. So we have not stopped since Helene came.
Yes, sir.
Robin, you read part of my.
I can answer that. I reached out to our federal level officials today because of some of the things that came up in one of the meetings that I sat in with Marcy. So yes, but I would also tell you, my opinion is everybody sitting in this room should be reaching out to our elected officials and complaining about FEMA. There's a system that they have in place. It doesn't have, these guys heard this today, there's no SOP that tells you how you manage a disaster like this. There's nothing that tells the staff what FEMA expects out of us. So we're all working not me, I'm just there. They're all working every day, nonstop, 7 days a week. Pushing forward and then finding out that that's not going to work for FEMA, we need to change and do something else. That is unacceptable in my opinion, for FEMA to do that. We're a little city that's never experienced this. Cape Coral was a city who had not experienced it. They're looking at having to sue residents and pay back money. It's crazy. So go home and call your elected official at the federal level and tell them FEMA needs something done about it. We shouldn't have to fight so hard to get the answers to what we need to do to comply. It should be easier for us. They should be the subject matter experts, and they should be able to provide that information to us, and they're not. And that is just simple. So for all of the patience that we have seen from residents and the frustration that there is, these guys and gals are working nonstop, and they have since Helene came through. They're exhausted. And they're trying their very best to do the very best for every citizen in this city. I don't think there's anybody who works in our city government that wants to see anyone not have their home. Sorry.
Well said. No, thank you, Mayor. You have,
Call me tomorrow.
yeah, we can
I
provide all
would be
the
happy to
addresses and
provide
numbers.
all of you with who to text
Yeah, who to text, who
and
to call.
call.
It'll be in the minutes for this meeting. You can call. I mean, we'll provide the numbers. We'll put them on our website. We'll give you the numbers for all the federal, the state, so county if you would like. But they're out there. Sometimes they're difficult. Go ahead, Barb.
Okay, so I'm trying to pull a demo permit because it values over $2,500. Do I need to file a knock or an notice of commencement with the county? I know any of you submitted a permit before know about notice of commencements, and that's a county requirement that if you start construction, anything to do with your home, including demolition, you need to file that with the county. But the dollar values have changed. If you, it used to be $2,500, it's now $5,000. So if you're anything, it doesn't matter if it's demo, whatever any type of permit where the permit value is over $5,000, you need to file a notice of commencement with the county, the clerk of court of Pinellas County. You can go to their website, the Pinellas County Clerk of Court website. You can file that. You can e-file it. You can do it online. And I think the cost to file a notice of commencement, I believe it's $10, something like that. It doesn't matter the value of anything like that. That's old verbiage, and I apologize for that. It needs to get changed. It was changed earlier this year sometime, and I'll make sure that gets updated. If it's mechanical, that number is $15,000. So if you're doing changing your HVAC, and it's under $15,000, you do not need to file a notice of commencement. One thing too, do we want to talk about Florida building code requirements
Sure.
with HVAC, in regards to HVAC? I can do that. If your air conditioning was damaged due to flooding, hurricane damage and everything like that, per the Florida building code, before you had your condenser on the outside raised, 3 to 4 feet, something like that, for a slab on a grade home. That condenser, anything on the outside, now has to be raised to be your base flood elevation plus 1 foot. So say if your base flood elevation is 10 feet, your condenser unit on the outside of your home needs to be raised to 11 feet. That's per Florida building code. That's not Frank, me, anybody up here. You can't do an equal change out because it was damaged because of flooding. Because that, you will need signed and sealed plans, which any HVAC contractor is very familiar with, showing how you're going to anchor it to your home. So I know a lot of people have put in some HVAC permits and I've had to kick them back. I've copied the code and an explanation of why it's kicked back. All they need to do is give us signed and sealed plans showing how that condenser unit is going to be raised to be in accordance with Florida building code.
And we did confirm today with the Pinellas County Construction Licensing Board, they pushed that notification out to all of their contractors to remind them about the requirements of the Florida Building Code. So the contractors have also been reminded of that because it is new with this year's edition of the Florida Building Code.
And to go, one other bit of information I know we've talked about here, you've heard us talk about the PCCLB. That stands for Pinellas County Construction Licensing Board. If you go to pcclb.com, that's their website. It has so much useful information for you as a homeowner on how to protect yourself from the yahoos that are out there taking advantage of you being vulnerable right now. You can also, there's a contractor search key. You can plug in any contractor that you're considering using. You can put in that person's name, and then it will come back and it will tell you if that person has an active license. If a contractor has an active license with the PCCLB, you know what? They've been vetted that they have workman's comp insurance. They have vetted that, they're licensed properly, that they know what they're doing. So we don't recommend contractors because it would not be fair, but we will tell you to go to that website, and it will tell you how to find a contractor, things to look for. A contractor comes up to you and can't show you his license or insurance information, that's a red flag. If they don't want to share that information with you, that's a red flag. If someone comes and wants money from you before they've given you a written contract showing that, okay, you give me this money, I'm going to deliver that good, I'm going to deliver this, that's a red flag. And I know everybody's desperate to get everything done as quickly as possible. There are people running around this county that will promise you the sun, the moon, and the stars and will not deliver. So, and if you have any questions too, if something sounds funny or whatever, shoot us an email, give us a call. Someone here will tell you, that's a red flag, protect yourself.
And again, that's pcclb.com, Pinellas County Construction Licensing Board. If anybody has any other comments, please fill out one of the sheets. They're in the back of the room. We will post them on the city's website. We will provide answers to the questions. I think we covered just about every question that we did receive. Again, we'll post them on the website. Please feel free to, again, email. We provided you those emails. We are here to do everything we can. Some of us live here, so we're 24 hours if we have to. Hold on
My name
just
is
a
Pam
moment.
Rasmussen. I've sat on some of the commissions here and things like that. I've always been very active with the city. And I joke that City Manager Gomez is the hardest working city manager I've ever met. That's tenfold after all of this. Not only himself, all of his staff, from his assistant all the way down, rec department, public works, marina. And I am so very happy. Yes, they all need a round of applause.
Thank all of you.
And I am so very happy that Mayor Brooks was the vice mayor when Jim Rostick stepped down, because I don't think he would have been as proactive and gotten as many resources for us and helped us as much as they all have. So think about that when you're frustrated about a permit or things like that, please.
Thank you all again very much for coming out.